I'm alive. You can't hear my music, can you?
No.
How's your game marathon thing?
Uh, Good. I mean, it went okay. Didn't get as far as I want, but that's pretty much every single one of these is kind of like that. So, but yeah, I mean, I could show you what I have
Yeah, I
or
want
what
to
I
see it.
ended up with. Um,
I saw one guy. I tossed you a link. He was doing his in Rust. I thought that was
oh yeah,
interesting.
let's see. Screen share. Yeah. Oh, maybe I can see if I can actually just share just the game instead of getting because I'm on just one 4K monitor. So 1 second. If this will start up.
This can't be real.
Oof. 1 second. It's being kind of weird. For some reason it. So I'm using .NET Core, and for some reason it like. See if you can see that.
You're not sharing. Oh,
Can
oops.
you hear that? Or
Yeah. All right,
yeah.
I'm looking at it.
So this is like a tower defense style game. Oh, that was a mistake.
Pac-Man.
Okay.
AI.
1 second. I can't hear you. All I hear is the game because it's like turned way the heck up. Let me switch that so that Chrome is a little louder. Okay, maybe I can hear you now.
Microphone check.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Cool.
Yeah, you got AI into your thing because it just knows when the enemy's coming in and shoots it perfectly. It doesn't even miss.
Yeah, it's not exactly AI. It's just a seeking algorithm, but and then I actually ended up using um, I ended up using a pathfinding algorithm to figure out how to get the whole thing here. So you can't like these two blocks. You should be able to put something on them, but because it would block their path, it prevents you. So you
Mm.
can only put the blocks where it isn't going to block anyone.
This
So
is like horde mode.
yeah, it needs to be balanced pretty badly. Uh,
So what is it about uh, video game apps that you're highly motivated to commit to versus line of business apps on
well,
your off hours?
there's with well, part of it is that this is a game jam, so it's this so it's a time box. It's really like I can get the work in and kind of be done with it. Um, but I don't know. There's like this isn't an easy thing to put together necessarily. Um, it's not just a bunch of known work. It's how do I figure out how to do this, and I don't know. Maybe it's to say that it's challenging, um, in a not in a frustrating way, challenging. But oh my god,
You're getting overran.
Yeah. Yeah, he's gonna die. Yeah, this game's over. Yeah. All right, I'll kill that. So, anyways, yeah, it's challenging in a way that's again not frustrating. Also, it's kind of creative in nature, so it's not just I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
That's cool.
It's fun.
Uh, have you looked at other people's
Entries?
submissions? Yeah, entries.
No, not yet. So when you finish up with the game jam, which you can do if you want to, and I'm not sure if I'm sure it's encouraged, but you can go look at everybody else's submissions and you rate them, and then after I don't know 30 days or 20 days or something, um, you can you get a score, and there's people who win the things. So
How do you know if they really time box their game to the allocated hours versus something that they've been working on for the past like 4 months?
you don't know,
Yeah,
but I
you
mean,
can
there
tell
are
based on the amount of detail.
people. Well, no, there's some really decent games that come out of this, but there's also jam version entries that you can use pre-made assets and you can use teams and stuff like that. So it's the one that I did is the hardcore mode. And that's compo, and that's like I had to do everything myself right there. And I don't know if you heard the music, but there's like a song I put together in there, and all the graphics and everything I had to do in the time box. I was able to start with starter code, um, but yeah, I mean, there are people that have made really, really good and nearly polished games in the end, but um,
Do
yeah,
indie developers make money in the mobile app stores?
I'm sure some do.
I
Um,
mean, that are like 2D games that you can crank out in like 8 weeks, or do they still require serious production level, at, at least 12 engineers programming away? Like, I guess my question is, outside of Flappy Birds or whatever it is there any example of like a lone indie developer that did extremely well?
in the mobile space, or
Yeah, in the mobile space.
um, man, I mean, the Flappy Bird guy is the only one that I know of, but I'm sure there's other people who have done reasonably well in that space,
Mm,
um, as a single non or a very very small team. But most of the game dev stuff I follow isn't on mobile, and most people that I know developing aren't doing it for mobile, so they're doing it for desktop or game systems or whatever. So,
yeah.
but there has been games that have come out of Ludum Dare that have gone on to be fairly uh, successful games. So I think the idea is that you're forced to build this small crappy game within a weekend, but then maybe that's a seed for something bigger. So and I don't know. I tower defense games are. I mean, there's plenty of them out there, but um, they're. I don't think they have to be anything special to be good. So um, it's pretty easy to get sucked into a tower defense game.
Mm.
But yeah, so I don't know. It started off as a completely different game, though. I was going to have this little person running dungeon, killing stuff, and trying to keep their heart rate going. So the theme was keep it alive. So um, I first was like, I want to do a tower defense, and I'm like, nah, I'm going to do this, and then I pursued that for a while, and I'm like, crap, I'm not going to be able to finish this, so I pivoted back to the tower defense thing and used some of the assets that I had made and dumped some other ones, and I don't know, it's fun.
Mm.
So how you doing?
Oh, you ever feel like you do a lot of work, but you're still in the same place? Like your wheels are spinning at 100 miles an hour, but you're not going anywhere. Sometimes I feel like that. There's a major issue with Google Maps now. So their API service for getting directions is down.
Hmm.
I learned that when I was trying to debug some weird exception that had no call stack history on, and after a couple hours, I learned that it was actually coming from the Google Maps service.
Hmm.
And so there's a lot of unhappy people and businesses. One of which is Good Sam. Are you familiar with Good Sam?
No.
Good Sam is like I don't want to say a wannabe, but they strive to be a competitor of AAA
Okay.
road service. So they're down, right?
Oof.
Yeah. So it's kind of a revelation. A lot of this stuff, like between this pandemic and Google Maps being down for its developers that use it, it makes you think, well, what's the probability of that ever happening? And it's like borderline zero until it happens. And so, like, it kind of makes you rethink. Okay, should people kind of design for this for any external dependency? Should they be able to design for those types of issues that are, with the caliber of Google, should be like extremely low probability of that happening? Because you would think that companies that are that mature would do a gradual rollout of changes and monitor it. And as soon as it starts recording unhandled exceptions on apps, then it would immediately start handling those 100 or 500 specific issues that represent the 1% of apps or customers that it rolled it out to gradually. I have a feeling this wasn't gradually rolled out. I could be wrong, but it just makes me rethink, is it worth accounting in our design for those type of scenarios that are extremely unlikely to happen until they happen? And so how do you isolate that from everything else? And so my code was, I mean, it's okay, but I realized that it's really not componentized. Um, so I had to go into a couple files and comment them out just so I could test my service bus messaging to my mobile app. So no, no, it's just something I've been thinking about.
Time to switch to Bing Maps.
Is Bing even still around?
Yeah.
They are.
I don't know if Bing Maps, if they have an API or what,
No,
but they
I know they
exist.
do. There's no reason for them to build it without without offering a business model for it.
Bing Maps. Maybe they just use Google Maps. Who
Mm,
knows?
I hope not. It
Oh, MapQuest is still around apparently.
makes you think about chaos engineering. I don't know. It's unfair to hold Google as like the perfect unicorn that should never ever expose human errors, because these are literal humans that are helping us make money or helping us learn. I know it's unfair to like target them and bash them. It just makes me wonder, like, I guess how complex software really is. And you're so you it's kind of a gift and a curse, right? Like I always thought that artists have a higher than normal suicide rate
Hmm.
because they're literally the victims of their success, right? You once you have the audacity to be a peak performer and put out something that is loved by everybody, then you're held to that standard. And if you go below that standard and have the audacity to put out something that is average, what most people are going to be putting out, then you get torn apart, right? And I kind of feel like even me, I'm unfairly judging Google, hating on them because they made a mistake or they did something that would be totally normal for me to do. Um, and now I'm the person that's kind of being the critic, even though I can never achieve the levels of I won't say never, but it would take a significant amount of time for me to achieve the maturity and talent of the type of engineers that they hire. And that's just being real. So I don't know. It's just a philosophical moment for me.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean that I think that's kind of what happened to the founder of Minecraft. Goes by Notch on Twitter, but and pretty much everywhere else. But he, he made this highly successful game, and then everything he did after that, like he had such a complex about it had to be good, because people would be judging him and stuff like that. And I think he went through some pretty bad mental illness stages. Maybe still does, but
Assume he's
yeah.
still alive.
Oh yeah, he's still alive. He's still kicking. He's just not active with the communities and stuff, and um, occasionally he'll present some contrarian opinions on Twitter, and then everybody hates him.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I thought I was going to catch hell for challenging a guy on Twitter.
Oh yeah.
Twitter probably just muted it so that no one can even see it. But this dude, he was advertising a meetup. I think it was a meetup group for the Rust programming language,
Mm-hmm.
and he decorated it in rainbow. And I'm like, hey, that sounds great, but why is the Rust logo decorated in rainbow? He's like, it represents diversity and rainbow is happy colors. And like,
Oh,
you
I
know,
see it. Introduction to WebAssembly via Rust.
yeah, and I was like, I said something in the notion of if you really want to sexualize a programming language or technology, why don't you just decorate it with dildos? Because that's what he's doing, man,
Mm.
right? And like I expected to, I don't know, have hella people with pink and purple hair start attacking me or whatever, but this is real talk. Why is it okay to for communities to sexualize? And I say it's sexualized, right? Because there's diversity is like white, black, Muslim, Christian, blah blah blah. But they're trying to frame it as diversity being where you put your penis, your vagina, and it's like I just don't agree with this. It's not appropriate to sexualize a programming language or a technology. It's not. If I put if I say F sharp meetup and I have two stick figures and one stick figure has the other stick figure bent over and is humping it, that's inappropriate. They won't let me get away with that. But why are we letting a community of people that prefer alternate ways of having sex get away with that? It- and no one wants to call it out. And that just annoys me. Yeah, I'm done.
Well, I don't know. Maybe you. I guess maybe you care too much about it. Like
I,
people want to do something like that. I don't. I don't care.
no, no. The issue is the issue is this: if anybody that doesn't belong to that community does something similar, then they catch hell. That's my argument, right? If I make any type of sexual innuendos, whatever that term is, because I'm trying to sound smart, about a techno, if I take someone else's technology and I attempt to decorate it with sexual, I don't know, connotations, then I'm going to get a cease and desist. I'm going to be reprimanded. That's what's going to happen to me, right? But if someone that decorates it in rainbows and says it's for diversity, and it's not for diversity, it has nothing to do with diversity. If they do it, then it's okay. In fact, you have these Fortune 500 companies that are now decorating their logos in rainbow colors, and it's not okay. But no one has the balls to say something because they're scared of being attacked. But it's just wrong, right? And it's just one example of a minority of people that can get away with doing things that other people will get reprimanded for doing. The same example is if I'm black, I could say the N word and just replace the R with the A, right? And no one's going to talk to me about it, right? Because they don't have a right to, quote unquote. But if you say it, you're going to catch hell. You're going to catch hell, and it's just another example of what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And I know I just butchered that phrase too, but I'm done talking about it. But it just annoys me. You're sexualizing a language, and it's not right because I can't do that. That's it.
Hmm.
Moving on.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I guess I don't know that I'm agreeing with you there. Um, just looking at the facts. So there's definitely a group of people, as you said, that likes to do things a little different way than the majority of people do. Um, there is evidence that they've been marginalized and you know treated poorly historically. Then they don't want that to happen. Um, and so now they're trying to you know draw attention to it. I think to normalize it so people just get over it. Now
I don't
I
think they're doing that at all.
yeah
I think they're trying to impose their lifestyles on mainstream, and it's something that I don't think uh, is appropriate. Period. Like decorating anything in the rainbow doesn't have anything to do with diversity. It has everything to do with sexual connotation. That's what it is. And they're trying to mask it with, oh, this is diversity. And it's not. It's you belonging to a club, okay? And you are literally decorating. It's just like being a blood or crip, right? And decorating everything that is not yours with gang colors. And it's inappropriate. It's not yours, right? And then you dare anybody to speak out against it, because if they do, then you're going to automatically throw them into a category of I don't know, homophobic, homo, whatever. And it's just I'm calling it out, man.
yeah. Well, I definitely don't like the idea that just because you're not of that group doesn't mean you can have an opinion about things or that you can't do similar things. What's your opinion on people who are like Blue Lives Matter or All Lives Matter? Those people. That's the same thing, right?
All right. So I've been watching a lot of First Amendment audits on YouTube.
Hmm.
Uh, and so that's how I got hip to Blue Lives matter, and I started seeing a lot more. I guess when your mind gets introduced, or when your brain gets introduced to something that it never really, I don't know, took notice of, then you start seeing it a lot more often, right? So, starting to see the blue line, on people's jackets or even tattoos. I'm starting to see it more often. And what do I think about it? Um, Quote unquote, do all lives matter? Of course they do, right? But is that actually practiced by the authorities? No, not at all. Um, do I have confirmation bias? I'm sure I do, right? It's just hard to believe that the 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 percentage of people that get locked up and the amount of time that they get locked up for is seriously seriously, I don't know if the word is augmented or just it's not proportional, when it comes to skin color, right? And I look at some of those videos, like the one guy was, I don't know if his name was Eric Gardner, whatever his name was, in New York, that was selling cigarettes, and it I just feel like if it were a white person or even just a woman, period, of any color, then like they would have handed a ticket, and that person would just have to deal with it in court. Like, I sincerely believe it was because the dude was a large black male that they felt the need to choke him out. The same thing with I'm still answering your question, but I got hella upset, borderline militant, for that Minnesota thing about 3 years ago, where the guy that was with his girl and his girlfriend's child in the back seat told the Minnesota cop, in this case, the cop was Hispanic, but told him that, hey, just so that you know, I have a pistol on me. And all of a sudden, the cop became on edge. But the dude told him. And then the cop told him to, license the registration. He said, okay, I'm reaching for my license, but my pistol is on this side, right? He told the cop, and the cop unloaded a clip into him on camera with the baby in the car, and he still gets off. Do all lives matter? It doesn't. It doesn't. Now, a counter scenario is when an Australian woman got gunned down by a cop, and she was the one that called the cops. That guy, I think he got like 12 years. Of course, he was black, the cop that killed her, but it's all lives don't matter. And if they did, then one, maybe I'm not smart enough to see that those scenarios of my confirmation bias are the ones that are actually making it to the media, and there's 99% of other scenarios that, yeah, people are actually going to jail for atrocities against minorities. But what the media shows, yeah, I get it. The media is in business to separate people and to scare people and make people angry, and they're doing a good job. What they show is a lot of minorities not being treated equally when it comes to the consequences of what white people do, and that part just annoys me. And at the end of the day, it's like you accept the system, or you could plan your funeral, and that's it.
Yeah. No, I fully get the idea. Um, and I think that's the thing that everybody makes mistakes about, uh, especially, in my, maybe in my circles, is the whole point of the Black Lives Movement was to draw attention to the issue that they see, with especially with authorities and stuff like that. And of course, Blue Lives Matter. They're a lot of cops are just normal people, doing their job, and they don't want to kill anyone. And it's scary to be in those situations. But that was never the point. Like you said, the point was to draw attention to what is seemingly unfair and disproportionate, you know, enforcement. But I mean, the idea of hoisting that up and drawing attention to it for the purpose of you know, I guess drawing attention to it is what that was there for. And, maybe this is the way that this person does. And I think,
I don't think so.
yeah, diversity is probably not a right word. I don't even think he used it. Inclusivity, maybe.
Oh,
Um,
you're actually looking at it?
yeah, it's just what
Yeah.
he used. But I think the idea maybe that it's just throwing out the flag saying, hey, this is a safe situation for anybody of this particular persuasion.
But it just doesn't make any sense.
But I mean, it's not like this isn't like the web assembly, like this isn't the company or the organizations doing it. This is some guy or some person who wants to do that, and whatever.
Okay,
You can
so
also choose to just ignore it. Ignore it.
no, because I'm seeing it too much, and it's annoying me because it's always a double standard. It is. All right. So I'll keep saying it. Well, will I be included in that community if I practice bestiality? Would I?
I don't know.
Yeah,
Probably.
it's diverse. I'm proud to make love to dogs. Right? Like,
Probably. I don't know. The thing is, what you got to maybe get is the who cares. Let them do what they want to do.
no, I care because it's not appropriate to sexual. If I can't do it, you shouldn't be able to do it. I'm a hater, right? So if I can't take the Rust programming language and create add some semen that drips off of it, then they shouldn't be able to do it either, right? If I can't sexualize something, they shouldn't be able to sexualize something. And that's the point that I'm trying to do is like you keep giving someone an inch because they're special, then they'll end up achieving a mile. And it's like, just no,
But I mean, isn't
it's not
that
appropriate. It's sexualizing. It has nothing to do with diversity. It has everything to do with sex. That's the truth. Those are facts.
well? Well, it might not. It's not to them though. It's definitely not about the what they do. In their private lives or whatever
Is in their private lives.
yeah.
That's the point.
But it's some of it's visible or whatever, and it's they've gotten hell for it. People have gotten hell for being who they want to be. And I mean, I don't necessarily want to go that route myself, and I don't want to necessarily have it in my face all the time either. But I see the point is that I guess people who've gone through that, who do weird things, and yeah, even if the people like to screw dogs, whatever, I don't care. Let people be who they want to be, whatever. But if you're getting, if you feel like you're part of this group that's been marginalized, or hurt in some way by society, I guess it's desirable to have these flags being flown. And I think that's, like I said, the same thing with the Black Lives Matter thing. It's the point is to draw attention to the problem that they see within a particular community subset. I mean, and they're not wrong. I mean,
The difference is this. Difference is I can't skin myself and put on white skin. Right? All this is involuntary. One can make the argument that, well, sexual orientation is involuntary. Okay, I can understand a certain percentage of that being true. Yeah, totally. I get that. But one is literally an outer layer of what is on you, and the other one is an actual behavior that you practice. That is the difference, and that's my issue with it. And I'm just saying, like, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Don't get mad at me when I start taking other people's creations, other organizations' creations, and start, I don't know, I can't even think of a good example. Start trying to impose my view on it, and then start screaming in protest when Microsoft or Twitter doesn't take, 1 month to do what I practice because they're discriminating against me if they don't do it. Like that, I'll get off the topic. It's just annoying me because
Yeah.
they're imposing uh, their lifestyle on the masses, and what they do behind private doors is fine. Do whatever you do. Life is short. Skeet skeet, right? But for you to try to impose this on other people, like I just don't think it's right because it's not for me to impose what I do behind doors on you. And so let's just keep that in check. You're not special. You're not. Right? What you do, you have certain things that you do that are different. I have things that are different, right? Let's not push that on other people. That's all. I'll get off the subject. I just get annoyed.
Yeah, it's all right, man.
Yeah. Anyways, this project is taking me forever.
I can imagine. Are you done with your contract now then, or still on that?
No, I'm still on my that contract was supposed to be for 2 months. I think I started in like October, and now it's going on May.
Hmm.
But I've updated my resume with the achievements I unlocked in Azure, and I'm trying to market myself as a Azure engineer, architect. Thing is it's not clear how to diagnose issues in Azure Service Bus. Like they'll show you the metrics of user errors and server errors, and it's just a number. Like it's not clear how to actually go into the logs and figure out what those errors are. And I've spent like half a day trying to learn all that stuff, how to do it, and it's just not intuitive. So that's the biggest blocker right now.
Yeah, I don't know what the queue creation. I guess I've never had to deal with those kinds of issues with Service Bus before. Do you use Service Bus Explorer at all when you're
Yeah,
going through stuff?
that actually helped me yesterday diagnose the error, and that's my whole thing. Like obviously, I'm ignorant because I don't know or I'm not aware of all the moving parts of Azure Service Bus, and I'm sure it's probably like Skynet, right? And so they're already dealing with like hella complexity. But viewing detailed errors as they occur should be a first class citizen of using that technology. It should be. Right now, I don't think it is.
Yeah, or it should just not have errors.
Should not just have errors. I
It
think
should just
there's
not have errors. Yeah,
um I
like
wouldn't know how to engineer that
just use
because
Rabbit. Rabbit's written in Erlang. That's no, and then everyone dumps Rabbit because it's not scalable.
well, there's different types of errors, right?
Yeah,
There's configuration errors. That's what I'm talking about, where you thought you configured something. Here's an example. You you just published a message on the bus for a topic that doesn't exist, right? How is that not an error, right? How do you engineer that to make that illegal state unrepresentable?
so that there's the if the topic doesn't exist.
Yeah, I mean, I have my idea. Is there's type providers in F sharp, and I think this would be a really good story for using that. So like type providers basically go out to an external source and verify. This is my understanding or interpretation, and verify that the schema that is actual uh, aligns with the schema of the client that's attempting to consume it or use it.
Yeah, yeah,
All right, so there's a SQL type provider. I think there's a JSON type provider, right? So at compilation times, goes across the wire, does its checks and balances to make sure that things are safe to do, and then it go ahead and if it's not, if there's some type of issues with correlation, then it'll show up as a compile time error.
Yeah,
So
I've seen the some demos of that.
yeah, so maybe
Time for you to write your
that
first
could be a
open source
feature.
library.
Yeah, maybe that could be a feature of a programming language at compile time to go ahead and do the check
There you
as one
go. It's your
example.
first. It's your first big open source project.
I hear you. I'm just trying to get
Azure
this.
Service Bus type providers. You wrote the book on it, so you could be get jobs just on that alone.
I'm just trying to. It'll be a killer feature because it's hella complicated, man, to get that stuff. If you're building, I don't know, an order fulfillment system, then there's a lot of things that you can get wrong just with Azure Service Bus messaging.
Yeah, messaging in general is tough.
I got I got Azure Signal R wired up. I got that working. So yeah, man. I'm like my blogs lately, probably for the past 3 or 4 months, have been primarily uh focused on Azure or revolving around Azure. So it, I don't know. I feel like I'm making progress in my learning, even though I'm spinning my wheels on my personal passion project.
Well, that's kind of the again, people pay for your mistakes. So if you're making them on your own time,
I've been mentoring this dude on Twitch. I've been feeling good about that. I feel like less of a jerk every time I monitor his F sharp katas and then step in and try to help him out.
do you actually call up or you just type it in the chat?
I'll call if there's something that I think is a high priority to call in, and so it's literally streamed of him answering the Skype call, and then us having like a 2 to 3 minute conversation of what he could probably consider, and then that's it, and then I just spend the rest of it in a chat window.
Hmm.
I mean, half the time he's struggling with compiler errors, where or syntactical errors maybe as he's learning the F sharp syntax and the F sharp paradigm.
Yeah, something I still need to do.
Do you really need to?
No, I want.
Okay.
I mean, I want to learn it one day because I feel like it just would make it my coding overall less verbose. But there's just a whole stack of things that I like knowledge that I have about C sharp that I wouldn't know how to even get started with. So
Have you considered starting a user group or a study group? Okay.
I'm a lone wolf, man. Other than you, I'll hang out with you. Otherwise, I'm just by myself.
Mm.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, even with just with things like storage classes and stuff like that, um, and speed. You know, how do I know when I'm allocating memory or not in those things? If I were to let's say use it for a game type thing, mutability is actually kind of important
Yeah.
in game dev because you need to have contiguous sets of memory and stuff like that to get speed. Occasionally use structs and things like that to help eke out that stuff or unsafe stuff in general, you know, direct referencing and
Yeah. I'm not sure if
but
FP is really for that paradigm.
there's at least one game engine that's written in I think F sharp.
Is it good?
I don't know. Let's see, what was it? New, is that the one? NU?
And what is it? 2D like physics engine or something?
Yeah, it's all 2D.
I want to see a game engine written in Rust. Not that I understand Rust syntax, but
I'm pretty sure there probably is some game engines written in Rust. Or if there isn't, there will be. Rust's taken over the world for
You think so?
Anybody who's doing C development or C++ development is like moving to Rust, potentially Go development too. Anybody who's not doing like a Java,
Oh, you say Go
C sharp,
developers are moving to Rust too?
I think that they are. I don't know. Like Rust is, like the new Firefox is entirely written in Rust. Microsoft is ditching C++ for Rust.
Rust, the LGBTQX community, they apparently adopted Rust as their go-to language.
For WebAssembly. Yeah, there you go. See, I mean, when you get that endorsement, it's it's taken off. So, but no, there's the thing is there's a lot of safety features in it, compile time safety features and stuff for memory allocation without the overhead
Yeah,
of
there's no
garbage
garbage
collection stuff.
collector.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
just won't
but
compile.
it's safe. Yeah, so um,
I think the issue with Go, not, and I've never even looked at Go syntax. I think the complaint is it doesn't support generics.
oh,
Apparently, that's a big deal to most people.
but Rust has got some functional constructs in it too, from what I could tell. They've got
Map filter
uh,
reduce.
I'm sure that they do, but I'm thinking more of like option types and result types and things like that. Those are built in, or they have them. I was looking at something yesterday because I have a result type. Actually, maybe you've done that. If you wanted to have a type that would describe either, so it's either T, none, or error, what would you call that? So it could be also like
Either
a result of maybe T,
either
but if you
T,
wanted to have a
none,
single,
or error.
yeah,
Well,
so it's either the value you're getting back, what you want, it's nothing because it's not there, or it's an error.
it's
And
a
you wanted a composite type.
it's a result type of maybe an error.
Yeah, that's if you do it, but if you wanted to reduce that into a single composite type. So it's not a type that contains another two types that then contains two types. It's because you've got then to deal with two different types. You've got the result type and the maybe type, and you have to deal with in both of those cases. Um, they contain their child or whatever, and having those individually is nice. But if you wanted to condense those into one type that is just the union of those three things, how would you name that? Because that's actually something I'm trying to go through right now.
What would be the name that I would apply to it?
Yeah,
Not the actual implementation details, but just the name that I would give to it. Um, well, it's probably the first thing that comes to mind is try. Well, yeah, I'll probably say try get.
yeah. That's partially along the lines of what I'm thinking. I think I have it right now as response, but then like the problem with the result type is that result, you know, it doesn't really imply that there's an error to it or that it should be erroneous. I think the result type is misnamed. I think like I've seen it that alias is failable. And I think that'd be a better way to describe it
Uh,
than result.
I like response because response means that you're literally relying on, for me, an external resource to give you what you need, and so that kind of like signifies that this could err, right? Because you can't control something that's external that you're relying on a response from.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's kind of like the idea of if you were to ask, I don't know, just abstractly, if you're going to ask a librarian to go get you the book, like you're hoping that they respond with the book, but they might go and get it, try to find the book, and the book's not there, so they respond with no book. Or as they're going to get the book, they get shot, and then somebody else comes back to you and says, you know what, the librarian you asked got shot, so you can't have this book right now. Maybe try again in a little bit.
The other thing is you still probably want to make sure that whatever type that you're trying to create can still be composable. So, for example, list.choose will take a sum or none, and based on whatever condition or based on whatever lambda expression, it'll iterate through that list and only return the sums, right? So, I mean, that may not be an issue. Like,
Yeah, well, in C sharp they don't have that, but now I've got an idea for something that because I've written that exact selector or map before,
no,
where I go select, lambda m, and then fat arrow where m has value.
I know one thing though. I think I mentioned this last time. Like, my mind is so wired FP style that I get annoyed with C sharp because there's certain things where like I'm used to like creating a list of operations and iterating through those operations. And in C sharp, I find myself one like for me that requires too much work to do in that language, and so instead I just have a huge sequence of conditional statements, and I hate it. I hate it to death. But and that's another thing is like just trying to be strategic using F sharp. But whenever I'm interfacing with my coworkers, I usually write the automated tests in C sharp and have them help me with why their server isn't giving me what I need. And instead of them looking at my F sharp code, I just have my automated tests as proof of concepts written in C sharp. And that's starting to work for me as well.
Hmm.
Once you go F sharp, man, or any FP language that's more likely statically typed, you're going to probably get more frustrated with other people's code than your own when you're going back to OOP.
Yeah. Well, I don't. I mean, I still do, but I don't when I'm in business stuff. Anyways, I don't try to write it as object oriented.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's so verbose. It takes a lot of work, which is why I'm thinking if I learned F sharp, I'd like it because I just don't like having to write that much. I mean, that's actually part of why I want a type to consolidate that result in maybe, because in C sharp you have to do result and angle bracket maybe angle bracket type angle bracket. That's a huge thing. And then if you have to wrap that in a task because it's async, so then you have a task a result of maybe this. And then if you let's say just have, I mean, you could get really crazy and say, well, what if that's an either type or something too? Now you've got the task of result of maybe either this or like it starts to get pretty nuts in terms of that. So what I want to do is we use results maybe a lot because a lot of our operations are just CRUD operations, and there's three possible things. It's either going to give you what you want, it's going to fail, or it's not going to give you what you want. And so I want to consolidate those into just one, so I can just write response quote result or response object response cart or something like that.
Well, here's an idea. If you have a Twitch account already, right? I thought I saw you on one.
Yeah.
If you commit to doing some F sharp katas, I'll subscribe to you. I'll get notified, and because I'm on lockdown, there's a high probability that I'll observe and then help you out with whatever syntax issues or have healthy conversations about your approach and what alternatives there are. That's what I do with Pavo. Um, so I mean, if you're sincere in learning F sharp casually and you don't mind documenting your journey on like a live stream, I could periodically hop in and help you out with non-intuitive syntax errors. That's it.
Yeah, that'd be kind of good. I think really what would help me is if I could construct something in C sharp and have someone explain to me how I achieve the same thing in F sharp
I could
considerably easier.
I could do that.
Because it's like I know what I want to construct. Like I know simple things like so like if I have response types that can be like a discriminated union, I can code that in C sharp, and I know how to make that pretty easy. And I think I could do that in F sharp pretty easily. But just stuff like I don't know. Um, yeah, I don't know. It could be that just certain I/O things get me confused, or I mean, when you're dealing too with yeah, I don't know. I just need to maybe just sit down and try it. I'd probably pick it up pretty quickly. I just the energy outside of work to do that has been pretty low.
It'll
So
probably well, it took me a solid week to really, or I won't say really, to have a good foothold in the async await support that F sharp provides. So like when you're saying, I want to be able to apply F sharp towards responses, then that's something that you're going to have to learn is F sharp.core's async module.
yeah, well, that's the thing is like in work, I doubt I can actually use F sharp. Uh, I've 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 toyed with it for a couple of things. I had an opportunity with one service where I was like, you know what, maybe I'll just do this, but then I needed to get it done rather quickly, so I pivoted back to C sharp. But I actually modeled it in F sharp before I did the C sharp portion of it. Um, and that was a useful exercise, but um, yeah, I don't know. Async await in C sharp is at this point for me is pretty much second nature. So I get it. I maybe don't get all the intricacies of it, but I get the pattern. I get how to use it. I don't get confused by it anymore. So
Well, there's a couple things. So one is there's the async module, right?
mm-hmm.
The other part that's really, really important, especially for you, is how to interrupt between C sharp and F sharp. That has some nooks and crannies, right? Because if you don't practice, you're going to end up writing all this boilerplate code just to appease the C sharp compiler
Mm-hmm.
with F sharp code that you're relying on. And so this is where you can create. Oh, it's a huge subject, but this is where creating records in F sharp that expose functions as properties will be very helpful for a C sharp client. So I know that's kind of convoluted, but you'll see what I'm talking about if you ever go down that rabbit hole.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, I assume that if you're going to use F sharp from C sharp, you probably write a facade into it or a really small library to feed data in and out. But I'm guessing you're not using the types and functions all over the place.
Oh,
So,
in my case, like dependency injection or whatever, I usually pass in the F sharp record that exposes functions as properties so that I could invoke F sharp functions fairly easily. Because if I don't use that type of method, at least the method that I've been using, then I end up having these very, very long typed declarations just to be able to pass a F sharp function into a C sharp method. So,
cool.
uh, same.
Oh, 7:30.
Oh, I guess it's been real. It's Friday. I kept on thinking yesterday was Friday.
The days just kind of all glue together now. I don't
Yeah.
know what the deal is. I don't. I have to actually think about what day it is half the time. I'm like, was today Thursday yesterday? Because I was trying to remember if we have our thing tomorrow or today or not. And God, this thing needs to be over before the economy goes tank and we're just all screwed.
Well, on Al Jazeera, they said that 3,332 people, Americans, died within the past 48 hours from corona.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah, there's like 60,000 or 50, 60,000 people total now. I don't know how that
Over
compares.
3,000 people in one day from that's like near like 9/11.
Yeah, but I mean, how many people die in a day?
How many Americans die in a day?
Yeah.
I don't know. Probably a lot, but
I mean,
this is
without
attributed.
context, I don't know if that number is big or not. We have 300 million people. 3,000 is a pretty small number compared
Uh,
to 300 million.
I
But I don't know,
understand
is
that,
that,
but this is specifically because of a specific virus.
yeah, sure.
So you might still have the same number of people that die for cancer, natural causes, gang affiliation, whatever, right? Plus coronavirus, right? So I mean that's the way my brain models it.
Yeah. Yeah. Mine, I mean, the thing is, it seems big, but I don't know if it, without context, I don't know that I can't know that it is, you know? Like if we lose, if let's say just on average 2,000 of those people would have died anyways, and they just happen to have coronavirus, and they think that they, you know, or they attribute it to that, you know, how does that all play out? Like, are we actually getting net more deaths? And then how many people are not dying because of cars not being on the roads, stuff like that?
Yeah, you're pretty
Or
smart.
how many people are dying because of suicides and stuff like that going on probably too right now. That's,
Well, how many
I'm guessing, it's
divorces
happening.
are starting to occur because people are forced to spend more time with each other than normal?
Yeah. Yeah, which will lead to suicides now.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is there's all this interconnected stuff. If you focus on one number, it's really difficult to tell what impact it really is having, you know. If it is really that it's, you know, we normally have 1,000 deaths in a day in the US or something, and now we have 3,000 a day. That's pretty staggering, right? But if we normally have 20,000 people die every day, or 30,000 people, and this pumped the number, let's just say a percentage of those would have died anyways, and now we've got, you know, 33, that's 10% of normal deaths. I mean, it's still an increase, but it doesn't sound as much. It's interesting too. This skews almost entirely to the elderly in terms of, or people with underlying conditions. Like normal people that just don't have anything else wrong with them aren't getting affected by it, which is, it's just strange.
You
Um,
left out uh drug overdose, which is a huge problem with heroin and stuff every day. How many people die from that? I thought there was a huge suicide rate. I thought someone was like offing themselves like every 20 minutes in the United States. I'm trying to figure that out. War veterans that off themselves.
yeah. Well, this one says, sorry, I'm thinking this now. This one's looking at like 300, only 300 a day people die. That seems low.
What, for suicides or war
No, for
vets?
just people dying in general. Of course, you can't get anything that's not skewed about coronavirus now. If you're looking for just average deaths per day.
The largest increases were among women aged 60 to 64, with rates rising 60%, than men in their 50s, with rates rising nearly 50%. In 2008, it was observed that U.S. suicide rates, particularly among middle aged white women, had increased, although the causes were unclear. As of 2018, about 1.7% of all deaths were suicides. So nearly 2% of all deaths were suicides in 2018. Wow. Um,
So there were in the
Suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the United States in regards to a 2016 report. 10th leading cause. So out of all the ways to die, at number 10 is suicide. That's a problem.
yeah, number one was heart disease, cancer, then injury, respiratory diseases,
I know men are more
stroke, Alzheimer's, diabetes, the flu.
I know men are more likely to violently perform suicide than women using firearms.
Yeah, they're more successful at it. My brother-in-law killed himself. Was it 2 years ago now? He went into a shipping container and turned on a garden tiller.
Wow.
Yeah, but
So,
that stuff happens. It's real, so it's yeah.
says a firearm is used in almost 50% of all suicides. Yeah, this got grim pretty fast. This was all based on you saying, well, is coronavirus really? How did you frame it? Is
I just don't
coronavirus
know the
really that
context.
different from everyday
No,
death?
I'm yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't know contextually. Are those people that would have died anyways or not? They just give you the raw number. I'm not saying that. Don't get me wrong. I'm not skewing it to say trying
Yeah.
to suggest that it's not that case. I just without knowing how many of those people would have otherwise probably died anyways. It's hard to say, but it looks like like in 2017 the flu killed 55,000 people. So we've surpassed that number.
In the United States or in the world? You
United
probably can't
States,
measure in the world though.
U.S. Yeah. So I mean, it's definitely having an effect, and currently is about as much as as the flu, but it's going to keep going up,
So so
presumably.
so here's my
So
argument. All right, and I've had this like a couple times because the state of Georgia, I think they're opening up today or this weekend. I think it's today. Um, Regardless, right? And so like my, I promise I want to make this brief. My argument is this: we continue to elect elderly people or otherwise politicians that have no background in science or research at all. We continue to elect failed lawyers and people that are out of touch when it comes to measuring data, right? They're masters at politics and social manipulation. They are not competent in statistical analysis and making informed decisions based on data. All right. And we keep electing the same people because we're idiots. All right. This is my issue, right? Instead of saying, "Oh, well, this economic downturn, this isn't sustainable. We need to open up business," while like hella people die, mostly old people, but they're people, right? Uh, my issue is instead of saying, "Okay, this isn't sustainable," people are becoming disgruntled. There's going to be a surge in suicides, divorce, just the disruption of the fabric of the human family. Let's put America back to work. That's fine. But the thing is arbitrarily just saying putting people back to work while you still have a pandemic. That's not going to work. Neither has it been working. So what I'm saying is right now it sounds like we just have to adapt to this new time. And if we're going to adapt to this new time, then hell's bells, man. You might see construction workers wearing hazmat suits, right? You might see people like if we're going to adapt, then we probably need to wear a protective covering other than just a face mask. If we're going to be going to bowling shot or bowling alleys, if we're going to be going to movie theaters, if we're going to be tearing the club up, like we might have to start getting fitted for special clothing or attire so that we can continue to make money uh, while this is trying to be controlled. But just saying, well, this isn't sustainable. The state is going to go bankrupt with hospitalization bills or health care. Yeah, we're just going to let people go about uh, doing work again, going to fitness gyms. No, that's not going to work at all. We're, we're just going to have to wear some hazmat suits. Because I don't know of anything else, but we have to adapt to it and not just arbitrarily pull a trigger, knowing good and well what the consequences are going to be. That's it. What do you think?
I think that people should be allowed to open their fucking businesses back up if they want to. At what expense? It's at your own risk type thing. The thing is that we can adapt. You can't adapt if the government says you can't be open. The government can say, "Hey, you can be open, but here's the suggestions that we have, or please try to." And if you can't be open, don't be. Or if you cannot be open, don't be. Like my brother-in-law owns a shop in town. He's shut down. He actually went in and had no one's ever in there more than one person at a time, maybe 2, 3 at most. It's kind of a come in, peruse, and then leave type of a thing, or buy something and go. He's never really got a crowd in there. He can't be open right now. That's his entire livelihood. And why can't he be? Because of some blanket government statement saying you can't be open right now without any rational reason. Like he can do everything that a restaurant's doing, or look at what happens here. Menards or Home Depot are considered essential because they're hardware, so they have floral shops and stuff inside that aren't essential. Like you don't have to have plants right now, garden center type stuff. Floral shops in Minnesota had to be closed for a long time. The small business floral shops couldn't do their business, but these big box chains who've got the money to survive this shit, they're allowed to kind of keep going. So the thing is like the government is these policies only really screw over really small business people. So I fully support saying, hey, open up for business, fine. But let's be smart about it and having guidelines and suggestions and talking about like the same stuff that's going on in grocery stores. Do your social distancing in a grocery store. You can do that in my brother-in-law's, retail shop. Or take a bowling alley, for instance. Think of a bowling alley. We have bowling alleys that are shut down. You're telling me that they can't just say, hey, open up, it's fine, but keep a lane distance between everybody who comes in, sanitize everything. You should try to sanitize all the bowling balls and everything. After you use, tell people to leave them on the stations. When they're done, they go, and they can at least get some commerce going. But you can't be smart and evolve into those situations unless you're given the opportunity to. If they're just saying, no, we got to be shut down, you can't do business, but these big business people can, that's BS.
Yeah, it sounds like they're applying a sledgehammer to.
They are
society.
without any sort of ability for people to have common sense and do what they need to operate their store as safely as they can for the people. They're not giving them the opportunity of adapt. They're just saying you got to be shut down.
Yeah, because my issue is like physical health, mental health, um, which I think the two are tightly coupled. But like, I used to have a regimen of doing pull-ups. I would run every day, every other day. After a run, I would do my pull-ups, and they taped off like everything, man. Like I'm in Toronto now, they tape off the workout equipment outside, and it's like you don't have to use a sledgehammer. You can tell people to use gloves and wear long sleeve attire. Like we can adapt to this.
Yeah, but they're not letting you. That's the thing.
Yeah, and they're writing. I've heard that they're writing like crazy fines for people that attempt to challenge the system. Like people getting fined like $800, $1,000.
Yeah, like my brother-in-law, he got the cops called on him for opening his door one day for like, hey, I'm going to be at the shop from this time to this time. If you want to stop in, whatever. And yeah, they say you can't do that. But the thing is, this guy's livelihood. I mean, you just and there's not a crowd in there. There's not a million people coming in. It's not a freaking Applebee's. It's like a small retail shop. But he got the cops called on him for operating, and he didn't get a fine, but he very well could have.
Yeah, we're victim of policies where it should really be a case by case evaluation.
Yeah, but that should be in the people's hands themselves. And the thing is, everybody in their right mind has an opportunity not to go to those retail shops too. Just because they're open doesn't mean that anybody has to go there.
Yeah,
so
I think
it's you know,
I heard once someone say, and he was right because him and I were debating what does it mean to be an essential business, and I usually win debates, but I lost this one. But I learned something. Is he was saying an essential business is essentially imagine that there is a zombie apocalypse, and would you still go? Would you still leave outside to whatever destination that you wanted to go to if there were a whole bunch of zombies going around tackling people and devouring their insides?
yeah, but by that rationale, there's no reason to go to a hospital ever. No reason to go to a hospital.
Hospital saves lives. You just got to get there.
In a zombie apocalypse, the hospital's the worst place to be.
Yeah,
where all the sick zombies are. They're all dead. You wouldn't go there. You might run to a pharmacy and steal some drugs in case you need them. You might go to a hardware store, but the actual only essential business is farming. Period. That's the only essential business.
fishing.
That's
But you need a market. Either way, you need a marketplace to sell it.
Agriculture. No, everybody could individually farm, and that's what the thing is that food gathering is the only essential thing we have. Everything else is just what we deem essential. People are going to die one day. You don't need hospitals to keep everyone alive. We do it because we want to keep people alive. There's no reason we have to. That's not essential.
It's not essential? Okay.
No, it's not. Think about it. I mean, people lived for years and years and years and years without dealing with hospitals and stuff. There was a medicine person. Usually they made it worse, but it's not essential.
Yeah, but it's a quality of life. It's preventive maintenance, right?
Yeah, but that's quality. We didn't say it's essential. Is quality essential? No. The only thing that needs
essential
to sustain life is to eat.
Not true. All right.
And shelter.
Who wants to live life with I'm going to abuse the term, with a chronic pain? No one does, right? It's probably not even fair for me.
But they will. They do it all the time.
It's probably not fair for me to comment on this, but people that have muscular sclerosis, whatever that term is, or any other type of like chronic pains, like life is, if you don't get treatment for that, then yeah, it's essential that you get quality care, or else there's really, in my opinion, what really is there to live for if all you do is suffer and pain, right? I'm not in that position, knock on wood, but no, that's my argument. Is hospitals are essential for preventive maintenance and to ease the pain of living.
That's not necessary. It's not essential. It's desirable, for sure. There's no reason for it. The only you need shelter. So I guess there is something wrong with just saying it's agriculture, but shelter can be derived from just grabbing materials and putting it together. So, and you could do that just in any place where you've got trees, and water, allocation of water, and that. So food, water, and shelter, aren't those the ones? Nothing says that you have to have. You've got to be able to take care of your chronic pain.
And gun
People were in
stores,
chronic pain for years.
gun stores and pawn shops.
Yeah. So there's I don't know, the whole zombie apocalypse thing. That was. I think you probably should have won that one if you thought
No,
about it harder.
I agree with them, but I mean, you raised some valid points.
But I did have. I actually, just as a side note before we close, I do have a occasionally when food is kind of on the edge of going bad, I do ask myself that. I'm like, if this was a zombie apocalypse, would I eat this food? And if I answer yes, then it's usually that's when that's how I can gauge whether I should eat food that's near the edge of going spoiled. So,
Well, I usually just give it to my dog.
all right, I gotta run.
All right.
So,
See ya.
yep.